Shamanism is a practice that involves a practitioner reaching altered states of consciousness in order to encounter and interact with the spirit world and channel these transcendental energies into this world. A shaman is a person regarded as having access to, and influence in, the world of benevolent and malevolent spirits, who typically enters into a trance state during a ritual, and practices divination and healing. The term shamanism was first applied to the ancient religion of the Turks and Mongols, as well as those of the neighboring Tungusic and Samoyedic-speaking peoples. The word shaman originates from the Tungusic Evenki language of North Asia and was introduced to the West after Russian forces conquered the shamanistic Khanate of Kazan in 1552. Upon learning more about religious traditions across the world, Western scholars also described similar magico-religious practices found within the ethnic religions of other parts of Asia, Africa, Australasia and the Americas as shamanism. Various historians have argued that shamanism also played a role in many of the pre-Christian religions of Europe, and that shamanic elements may have survived in popular culture right through to the early modern period. Various archaeologists and historians of religion have also suggested that shamanism may have been a dominant pre-religious practice for humanity during the Paleolithic. Mir Shia writes, a first definition of this complex phenomenon, and perhaps the least hazardous, will be, shamanism equals technique of religious ecstasy. Shamanism encompasses the premise that shamans are intermediaries or messengers between the human world and the spirit worlds. Shamans are said to treat ailments illness by mending the soul. Alleviating traumas affecting the soul spirit restores the physical body of the individual to balance and wholeness. The shaman also enters supernatural realms or dimensions to obtain solutions to problems afflicting the community. Shamans may visit other worlds' dimensions to bring guidance to misguided souls and to ameliorate illnesses of the human soul caused by foreign elements. The shaman operates primarily within the spiritual world, which in turn affects the human world. The restoration of balance results in the elimination of the ailment. Shamanic beliefs and practices have attracted the interest of scholars from a wide variety of disciplines, including anthropologists, archaeologists, historians, religious studies scholars and psychologists. Hundreds of books and academic papers on the subject have been produced, with a peer-reviewed academic journal being devoted to the study of shamanisms. In the 20th century, many Westerners involved in the countercultural movement adopted magico-religious practices influenced by indigenous shamanisms from across the world, creating the neo-shamanic movement. Terminology, etymology, the word shaman originates from the Evenki word ๊ʃɑːmən. The Tungusic term was subsequently adopted by Russians interacting with the indigenous peoples in Siberia. It is found in the memoirs of the exiled Russian churchman Avakam. The word was brought to Western Europe in 1692 by the Dutch traveller Nicholas Whitson, who reported his stay and journeys among the Tungusic and Samoyedic-speaking indigenous peoples of Siberia in his book No den Tatarian. Adam Brand, a merchant from Laon-Quarterbeck, published in 1698 his account of a Russian embassy to China, and a translation of his book, published the same year, introduced the word to English speakers. The etymology of the Evenki word is sometimes connected to a Tungus root ๊ɑngstrom to know. Other scholars assert that the word comes directly from the Manchu language, and would therefore be the only commonly used English word that is a loan from this language. However, it has been pointed out that the Sanskrit word ๊āngstrom Ramaya to the first designating a wandering monastic or holy figure, has spread to many Central Asian languages with Buddhism and could be the ultimate origin of the Tungusic word. Definitions. There is no single agreed-upon definition for the word shamanism among anthropologists. The English historian Ronald Hutton noted that by the dawn of the 21st century, there were 4 separate definitions of the term which appeared to be in use. The first of these uses the term to refer to anybody who contacts a spirit world while in an altered state of consciousness. The second definition limits the term to refer to those who contact a spirit world while in an altered state of consciousness at the behest of others. The third definition attempts to distinguish shamans from other magico-religious specialists who are believed to contact spirits, such as mediums, witch doctors, spiritual healers, or prophets, by claiming that they undertake some particular technique not used by the others. Problematically, scholars advocating the third view have failed to agree on what the defining technique should be. The fourth definition identified by Hutton uses shamanism to refer to the indigenous religions of Siberia and neighboring parts of Asia. According to the Golomd Center for Shamanic Studies, a Mongolian organization of shamans, the Evenki word shaman would more accurately be translated as priest. Initiation and learning. Shamans are normally called by dreams or signs which require lengthy training. However, shamanic powers may be inherited. Turner and colleagues mention a phenomenon called shamanistic initiatory crisis, a rite of passage for shamans to be, commonly involving physical illness and/or psychological crisis. The significant role of initiatory illnesses in the calling of a shaman can be found in the detailed case history of Xiao Suan, the last master shaman among the Tungus peoples in northeast China. The wounded healer is an archetype for a shamanic trail and journey. This process is important to the young shaman, as he undergoes a type of sickness that pushes her or him to the brink of death. This happens for two reasons: the shaman crosses over to the underworld. This happens so the shaman can venture to its depths to bring back vital information for the sick, and the tribe. The shaman must become sick to understand sickness. When the shaman overcomes his or her own sickness, he will hold the cure to heal all that suffer. This is the uncanny mark of the wounded healer. Roles. Shamans gain knowledge and the power to heal by entering into the spiritual world or dimension. Most shamans have dreams or visions that tell them certain things. The shaman may have or acquire many spirit guides, who often guide and direct the shaman in his/her travels in the spirit world. These spirit guides are always present within the shaman, though others only encounter them when the shaman is in a trance. The spirit guide energizes the shaman, enabling him/her to enter the spiritual dimension. The shaman heals within the spiritual dimension by returning lost parts of the human soul from wherever they have gone. The shaman also cleanses excess negative energies which confuse or pollute the soul. Shamans act as mediators in their culture. The shaman communicates with the spirits on behalf of the community, including the spirits of the deceased. The shaman communicates with both living and dead to alleviate unrest, unsettled issues, and to deliver gifts to the spirits. Shamans assist in soul retrieval. In shamanism, it is believed that part of the human soul is free to leave the body. The soul is the axis mundi, the center of the shamanic healing arts. Shamans change their state of consciousness, allowing their free soul to travel and retrieve ancient wisdom and lost power. Because a portion of the soul is free to leave the body, it will do so when dreaming, or it will leave the body to protect itself from potentially damaging situations, be they emotional or physical. In situations of trauma, the soul piece may not return to the body on its own, and a shaman must intervene and return the soul essence. Among the silkups, the sea duck is a spirit animal because ducks fly in the air and dive in the water. Thus ducks belong to both the upper world and the world below. Among other Siberian peoples, these characteristics are attributed to waterfowl in general. Shamans perform a variety of functions depending upon their respective cultures. Healing, leading a sacrifice, preserving the tradition by storytelling and songs, fortune-telling, and acting as a psychopomp. A single shaman may fulfill several of these functions. The functions of a shaman may include either guiding to their proper abode the souls of the dead, and/or curing of ailments. The ailments may be either purely physical afflictions such as disease, which may be cured by gifting, flattering, threatening, or wrestling the diseased spirit, and which may be completed by displaying a supposedly extracted token of the diseased spirit, or else mental afflictions such as persistent terror, which may be likewise cured by similar methods. Usually in most languages a different term other than the one translated shaman is applied to a religious official leading sacrificial rites, or to a raconteur of traditional law. There may be more of an overlap in functions, however, in the case of an interpreter of omens or of dreams. Thea Kun practiced healing dances which they performed at night. These dances were an integrating and enhancing force central to group solidarity. The dances may have cured an ill person by a pulling out a sickness, but the healing was also synergistic, bringing people together and thereby creating a whole society from separate individuals. Kung healers are what we might call shamans, and they were able to see what was troubling everyone. By getting into a trance they could easily inside Fiopli unregistered trademark S bodies, or travel to the realm where the gods and the spirits of dead ancestors lived. A struggle would ensue between the spirits of the dead and the healer, who would attempt to bring back the soul of a sick person to the realm of the living. There are distinct types of shaman who perform more specialized functions. For example, among the Nani people, a distinct kind of shaman acts as a psychopomp. Other specialized shamans may be distinguished according to the type of spirits, or realms of the spirit world, with which the shaman most commonly interacts. These roles vary among the Ninets, Hunnets, and Selkup shaman. Among the Huichol, there are two categories of shaman. This demonstrates the differences among shamans within a single tribe. Among the Hmong people, the shaman or the NTXIV Nage, acts as healer. The NTXIV Nage also performs ritual ceremonies designed to call the soul back from its many travels to the physical human body. A NTXIV Nage may use several shamanistic tools such as swords, divinity horns, a gong, or finger bells jingles. All tools serve to protect the spirits from the eyes of the unknown, thus enabling the NTXIV Nage to deliver souls back to their proper owner. The NTXIV Nage may wear a white, red, or black veil to disguise the soul from its attackers in the spiritual dimension. Boundaries between the shaman and laity are not always clearly defined. Among the Baraçana of Brazil, there is no absolute difference between those men recognized as shamans and those who are not. At the lowest level, most adult men have abilities as shamans and will carry out the same functions as those men who have a widespread reputation for their powers and knowledge. The Baraçana shaman knows more myths and understands their meaning better. Nonetheless, the majority of adult men also know many myths. Among Inuit peoples, the laity have experiences which are commonly attributed to the shamans of those Inuit groups. Daydream, reverie, and trance are not restricted to shamans. Control over/alliance with helping spirits is the primary characteristic attributed to shamans. The laity usually employ amulets, spells, formulas, songs. Among the Greenland Inuit, the laity have greater capacity to relate with spiritual beings. These people are often apprentice shamans who fail to complete their initiations. The assistant of an Rakan shaman knows many things about the associated beliefs. He or she accompanies the rituals and interprets the behavior of the shaman. Despite these functions, the Jardalanin is not a shaman. For this interpretative assistant, it would be unwelcome to fall into trance. Ecological aspect, resources for human consumption are easily depletable in tropical rainforests. Among the Twakano people, a sophisticated system exists for environmental resources management and for avoiding resource depletion through overrenting. This system is conceptualized mythologically and symbolically by the belief that breaking hunting restrictions may cause illness. As the primary teacher of tribal symbolism, the shaman may have a leading role in this ecological management, actively restricting hunting and fishing. The shaman is able to release game animals, or their souls, from their hidden abodes. The Pairoa people have ecological concerns related to shamanism. Among the Inuit, shamans fetch the souls of game from remote places, or soul travel to ask for game from mythological beings like the ʃaː-mən. Economics. The way shamans get sustenance and take part in everyday life varies among cultures. In many Inuit groups, they provide services for the community and get a due payment, but these goods are only welcome addenda. They are not enough to enable shamanizing as a full-time activity. Shamans live like any other member of the group, as hunter or housewife. Beliefs. There are many variations of shamanism throughout the world, but several common beliefs are shared by all forms of shamanism. Common beliefs identified by Iliad are the following: spirits exist and they play important roles both in individual lives and in human society. The shaman can communicate with the spirit world. Spirits can be benevolent or malevolent. The shaman can treat sickness caused by malevolent spirits. The shaman can employ trance-inducing techniques to incite visionary ecstasy and go on vision quests. The shaman's spirit can leave the body to enter the supernatural world to search for answers. The shaman evokes animal images as spirit guides, omens, and message bearers. The shaman can perform other varied forms of divination, scry, throw bones runes, and sometimes foretell of future events. Shamanism is based on the premise that the visible world is pervaded by invisible forces or spirits which affect the lives of the living. Although the causes of disease lie in the spiritual realm, inspired by malicious spirits, both spiritual and physical methods are used to heal. Commonly, a shaman enters the body of the patient to confront the spiritual infirmity and heals by banishing the infectious spirit. Many shamans have expert knowledge of medicinal plants native to their area, and an herbal treatment is often prescribed. In many places shamans learn directly from the plants, harnessing their effects and healing properties, after obtaining permission from the indwelling or patron spirits. In the Peruvian Amazon basin, shamans and curanderas use medicine songs called icaros to evoke spirits. Before a spirit can be summoned, it must teach the shaman its song. The use of totemic items such as rocks with special powers and an animating spirit is common. Such practices are presumably very ancient. Plato wrote in his Phaedrus that the first prophecies were the words of an oak, and that those who lived at the time found it rewarding enough to listen to an oak or a stone, so long as it was telling the truth. Belief in witchcraft and sorcery, known as brujeria in Latin America, exists in many societies. Other societies assert all shamans have the power to both cure and kill. Shamanic knowledge usually enjoys great power and prestige in the community, but it may also be regarded suspiciously or fearfully as potentially harmful to others. By engaging in their work, a shaman is exposed to significant personal risk, from the spirit world, from enemy shamans, or from the means employed to alter the shaman's state of consciousness. Shamanic plant materials can be toxic or fatal if misused. Failure to return from an out-of-body journey can lead to death. Spells are commonly used to protect against these dangers, and the use of more dangerous plants is often very highly ritualized. Soul and spirit concepts. The variety of functions described above may seem like distinct tasks, but they may be united by underlying soul and spirit concepts. Soul. This concept can generally explain more, seemingly unassociated phenomena in shamanism. Healing. This concept may be based closely on the soul concepts of the belief system of the people served by the shaman. It may consist of retrieving the lost soul of the ill person. See also the soul dualism concept. Scarcity of hunted game. This problem can be solved by releasing the souls of the animals from their hidden abodes. Besides that, many taboos may prescribe the behavior of people towards game, so that the souls of the animals do not feel angry or hurt, or the pleased soul of the already killed prey can tell the other, still living animals, that they can allow themselves to be caught and killed. For the ecological aspects of shamanistic practice, and related beliefs, see below. Infertility of women. This problem can be cured by obtaining the soul of the expected child. Spirits. Beliefs related to spirits can explain many different phenomena. For example, the importance of storytelling, or acting as a singer, can be understood better if we examine the whole belief system. A person who can memorize long texts or songs, and play an instrument, may be regarded as the beneficiary of contact with the spirits. Practice. Generally, the shaman traverses the axis mundi and enters the spirit world by effecting a transition of consciousness, entering into an ecstatic trance either auto-hypnotically or through the use of entheogens. The methods employed are diverse, and are often used together. Entheogens. An entheogen is a psychoactive substance used in a religious, shamanic, or spiritual context. Entheogens have been used in a ritualized context for thousands of years. Their religious significance is well established in anthropological and modern evidences. Examples of traditional entheogens include peyote, psilocybin mushrooms, uncured tobacco, cannabis, ayahuasca, salvia divinorum, tabernan iboga, Ipomea tricolor, and Amanita muscaria. Shamans will often observe dietary or customary restrictions particular to their tradition. These restrictions are more than just cultural. For example, the diet followed by shamans and apprentices prior to participating in an ayahuasca ceremony includes foods rich in tryptophan as well as avoiding foods rich in tyramine, which could induce hypertensive crisis if ingested with MAOIs such as are found in ayahuasca brews, as well as abstinence from alcohol or sex. Music, songs. Just like shamanism itself, music and songs related to it in various cultures are diverse, far from being alike. In several instances, songs related to shamanism are intended to imitate natural sounds, via onomatopoeia. Sound mimesis in various cultures may serve other functions not necessarily related to shamanism, practical goals as luring game in the hunt, or entertainment. Other practices: dancing, singing, icaros/medicine songs, vigils, fasting, sweat lodge, vision quests, mariri, sword fighting/bladesmithing, paraphernalia. Shamans may have various kinds of paraphernalia in different cultures. Drum. The drum is used by shamans of several peoples in Siberia, the Inuit, and many other cultures all over the world, although its usage for shamanistic seances may be lacking among the Inuit of Canada. The beating of the drum allows the shaman to achieve an altered state of consciousness or to travel on a journey between the physical and spiritual worlds. Much fascination surrounds the role that the acoustics of the drum play to the shaman. Shaman drums are generally constructed of an animal skin stretched over a bent wooden hoop, with a handle across the hoop. Feathers are in numerous North and South American cultures, as well as in Europe and Asia. Birds are seen as messengers of the spirits. Feathers are often used in ceremonies and in individual healing rituals. Rattle found mostly among South American and African peoples. Also used in ceremonies among the Navajo and in traditional ways in their blessings and ceremonies. Gong often found through Southeast Asia, Far Eastern peoples. Pipe used for smoking various tobaccos and psychoactive herbs. Sword in Hmong shamanism, a holy sword will always be used in the practice to protect the shaman from wandering evil spirits as he travels to the spirit world. Shake found mostly in Hmong shamanism. The shaman begins his practice by rattling, which turns into a shake. It is the process of communicating with his shamanistic spirits to guide him to the spirit world. Long table a flexible wooden table, approximately 9 by 2 feet, is used in Hmong shamanism. The table transforms into a flying horse in the spirit world. Rooster a rooster is often used in Hmong shamanism. A shaman uses a rooster when he journeys to the unknown. It is said that the rooster shields the shaman from wandering evil spirits by making him invisible. Thus, the evil spirits only see the rooster's useless spirit. Academic study. Cognitive, semiotic, hermeneutic approaches. As mentioned, the approach explains the etymology of word shaman as meaning one who knows. Really, the shaman is a person who is an expert in keeping together the multiple codes of the society. Accordingly, the society's codes are the manifestation of the society's underlying complex belief system. Thus, to be effective, shamans maintain a comprehensive view in their mind which gives them certainty of knowledge. The shaman uses multiple codes. Shamans express meanings in many ways: verbally, musically, artistically, and in dance. Meanings may be manifested in objects such as amulets. The shaman knows the culture of his or her community well, and acts accordingly. Thus, their audience knows the used symbols and meanings that is why shamanism can be efficient, people in the audience trust it. For example, the shaman's drumming can appear to its members as certainty of knowledge this explains the above described etymology for the word shaman as meaning one who knows. There are semiotic theoretical approaches to shamanism. The symbols on this shaman's costume and drum can refer to power animals, or to the rank of the shaman. There are also examples of mutually opposing symbols, distinguishing a white shaman who contacts sky spirits for good aims by day, from a black shaman who contacts evil spirits for bad aims by night. Shaman's lore is rooted in the folklore of the community, which provides a mythological mental map. ʻʃɑːmən uses the concept grammar of mind. Linking to a Sami example, Kathleen Osgood Dana writes, ʻʃɑːmən, in his introduction to shamanism and northern ecology, explains how the Sami drum embodies Sami worldviews. He considers shamanism to be a grammar of mind, a unregistered trademark, because shamans need to be experts in the folklore of their cultures. Armin Gietz coined and introduced the hermeneutics, ethnohermeneutics, approaches to the practice of interpretation. Hopper extended the term to include not only the interpretation of oral and written texts, but that of visual text as well. It not only reveals the animistic views hiding behind shamanism, but also conveys their relevance for the contemporary world, where ecological problems have validated paradigms about balance and protection. Ecological approaches, systems theory. Other fieldworks use systems theory concepts and ecological considerations to understand the shaman's lore. Disana and Tucano Indians have developed a sophisticated symbolism and concepts of energy flowing between people and animals in cyclic paths. Gerardo Rachel Dolmatoff relates these concepts to developments in the ways that modern science treats causality in a less linear fashion. He also suggests a cooperation of modern science and indigenous lore. Hypotheses on origins. Shamanic practices may originate as early as the Paleolithic, predating all organized religions, and certainly as early as the Neolithic period. Early anthropologists' studies theorize that shamanism developed as a magic practice to ensure a successful hunt or gathering of food. Evidence in caves and drawings on walls support indications that shamanism started during the Paleolithic era. One such picture featured a half-animal, with the face and legs of a man, with antlers and a tail of a stag. Archaeological evidence exists for Mesolithic shamanism. The oldest known shaman grave in the world is located in the Czech Republic at Dolní Věstonice. This gravesite was evidence of a female shaman. In November 2008, researchers from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem announced the discovery of a 12,000-year-old site in Israel that is perceived as one of the earliest known shaman burials. The elderly woman had been arranged on her side, with her legs apart and folded inward at the knee. 10 large stones were placed on the head, pelvis and arms. Among her unusual grave goods were 50 complete tortoise shells, a human foot, and certain body parts from animals such as a cow tail and eagle wings. Other animal remains come from a boar, leopard, and 2 martens. It seems that the woman was perceived as being in a close relationship with these animal spirits, researchers noted. The grave was one of at least 28 graves at the site, located in a cave in Lower Galilee and belonging to the Natufian culture, but is said to be unlike any other among the Epipaleolithic Natufians or in the Paleolithic period. Robert Sapolsky has theorized that shamanism is practiced by schizotypal individuals. Clinical Trial 2007. The Kaiser Permanente Center for Health Research in Portland, Oregon conducted a phase I study into the effectiveness of shamanic healing as a treatment for chronic face and jaw pain. 23 women who were diagnosed with temporomandibular joint disorders participated in the study. At the end of treatment, only 4 were clinically diagnosed with a TMDs present at the beginning of the study. Historical Anthropological School of Folkloristics. Folklorists have evaluated the presence of remnants of shamanism and shamanic practice in folktales from around the world. Michael Berman identified the genre of the shamanic story, examples of which are only produced by folk groups with shamanic cosmology or a shamanic worldview. Kult Krauns points out that, in areas where shamanism has long been a thing of the past, many tales contain only vague, piecemeal or inaccurate recollections of shamans, and there the presence of distinctive characteristics and features of shamanic stories help folklorists and anthropologists reconstruct a unregistered trademark as practice of shamanism. Decline and revitalization / tradition preserving movements. Shamanism is believed to be declining around the world, possibly due to other organized religious influences, like Christianity, that want people who practice shamanism to convert to their own system and doctrine. Another reason is Western views of shamanism as primitive, superstitious, backward and outdated. Whalers who frequently interact with Inuit tribes are one source of this decline in that region. In many areas, former shamans ceased to fulfill the functions in the community they used to, as they felt mocked by their own community, or regarded their own past as deprecated and are unwilling to talk about it to an ethnographer. Moreover, besides personal communications of former shamans, folklore texts may narrate directly about a deterioration process. For example, a Buyat epic text details the wonderful deeds of the ancient first shaman Karagar ¼ currency N. He could even compete with God, create life, steal back the soul of the sick from God without his consent. A subsequent text laments that shamans of older times were stronger, possessing capabilities like omnividence, fortune-telling even for decades in the future, moving as fast as a bullet. The texts contrast them to the recent heartless, unknowing, greedy shamans. In most affected areas, shamanic practices ceased to exist, with authentic shamans dying and their personal experiences dying with them. The loss of memories is not always lessened by the fact the shaman is not always the only person in a community who knows the beliefs and motives related to the local shamanhood. Although the shaman is often believed and trusted precisely because he accommodates to the grammar of the beliefs of the community, several parts of the knowledge related to the local shamanhood consist of personal experiences of the shaman, or root in his/her family life, thus, those are lost with his/her death. Besides that, in many cultures, the entire traditional belief system has become endangered, the other people of the community remembering the associated beliefs and practices grew old or died, many folklore memories were forgotten, which may threaten even such peoples who could preserve their isolation until the middle of the 20th century, like the Nghanizan. Some areas could enjoy a prolonged resistance due to their remoteness. Variants of shamanism among Inuit peoples were once a widespread phenomenon, but today are rarely practiced, and they were already in decline among many groups, even during the first major ethnological research was done, for example among Polar Inuit, at the end of 19th century, Sagluk, the last shaman who was believed to be able to travel to the sky and under the sea died a euro, and many other former shamanic capacities were lost during that time as well, like ventriloquism and sleight of hand. The isolated location of Nghanizan people allowed shamanism to be a living phenomenon among them even at the beginning of 20th century. The last notable Nghanizan shaman ceremonies could be recorded on film in the 1970s. After exemplifying the general decline even in the most remote areas, it should be noted that there are revitalization or tradition-preserving efforts as a response. Besides collecting the memories, there are also tradition-preserving and even revitalization efforts, led by authentic former shamans. However, according to Richard L. Allen, research and policy analyst for the Cherokee Nation, they are overwhelmed with fraudulent shaman, also known as plastic medicine people. One may assume that anyone claiming to be a Cherokee shaman, spiritual healer, or pipe carrier, is equivalent to a modern-day medicine show and snake oil vendor. One indicator of a plastic shaman might be someone who discusses Native American spirituality, but does not mention any specific Native American tribe. The New Age Frauds and Plastic Shamans website discusses potentially plastic shamans. Besides tradition-preserving efforts, there are also neo-shamanistic movements. These may differ from many traditional shamanistic practice and beliefs in several points. Admittedly, several traditional belief systems indeed have ecological considerations, and among Tucano people, the shaman indeed has direct resource-protecting roles. See details in section Ecological aspect. Today, shamanism survives primarily among indigenous peoples. Shamanic practices continue today in the tundras, jungles, deserts, and other rural areas, and even in cities, towns, suburbs, and shanty towns all over the world. This is especially true for Africa and South America, where mestizo shamanism is widespread. Regional variations. Asia. Here are some of the countries in Asia in which shamanists live. Mongolia. Mongolian classics, such as The Secret History of the Mongols, provide details about male and female shamans serving as exorcists, healers, rainmakers, oniromancers, soothsayers, and officials. shamanic practices continue in present-day Mongolia culture. The spiritual hierarchy in clan-based Mongolian society was complex. The highest group consisted of 99 Tngri, 77 Natagai or Earth Mothers, besides others. The Tngri were called upon only by leaders and great shamans and were common to all the clans. After these, three groups of ancestral spirits dominated. The Lord Spirits were the souls of clan leaders to whom any member of a clan could appeal for physical or spiritual help. The Protector Spirits included the souls of great shamans and shamanesses. The Guardian Spirits were made up of the souls of smallish shamans and shamanesses and were associated with a specific locality in the clan's territory. In the 1990s, a form of Mongolian neo-shamanism was created which has given a more modern approach to shamanism. Mongolian shamans are now making a business out of their profession and even have offices in the larger towns. At these businesses, a shaman generally heads the organization and performs services such as healing, fortune-telling, and solving all kinds of problems. Hmong shamanism. The Hmong people, as an ancient people of China with a 5,000-year history, continue to maintain and practice its form of shamanism known as Hui-nab in mainland Asia. At the end of the Vietnam War, some 300,000 Hmong have been settled across the globe. They have continued to practice Hui-nab in various countries in North and South America, Europe and Australia. In the U.S., the Hmong shaman practitioner is known as a TXIV-nab has been licensed by many hospitals in California as being part of the medical health team to treat patients in hospital. This revival of Hui-nab in the West has been brought great success and has been hailed in the media as doctor for the disease, shaman for the soul. Being a Hmong shaman represents a true vocation, chosen by the shaman god Savai'i. The shaman's main job is to bring harmony to the individual, their family and their community within their environment by performing various rituals. Animal sacrifice has been part of the Hmong shamanic practice for the past 5,000 years. Contrary to the belief of many Westerners, the Hmong practice of using animal in shamanic practice has been done with great respect. After the Vietnam War, over 200,000 Hmong were resettled in the United States and shamanism is still part of the Hmong culture. But due to the colluding of culture and the law, as Professor Alison Dundes Rentelm, a political science professor at the University of Southern California and author of The Cultural Defense, a book that examines the influence of such cases on U.S. courts, once said, "We say that as a society we welcome diversity, and in fact that we embrace it. In practice, it's not that easy." The Hmong believe that all things on earth have a soul, and those souls are treated as equal and can be considered interchangeable. When a person is sick due to his soul being lost or captured by wild spirit, it is necessary to ask and get permission of that animal, whether it is a chicken, pig, dog, goat or any other animals required, to use its soul for an exchange with that person's soul for a period of 12 months. At the end of that period, during the Hmong New Year, the shaman performed a special ritual to release the soul of that animal and send it off to the world beyond. As part of his service to mankind, the animal's soul is sent off to be reincarnated into a higher form of animal or even to become a member of a god's family to live a life of luxury, free of the suffering as an animal. Hence, being asked to perform this duty is one of the greatest honors for that animal to be able to serve mankind. The Hmong of southeast Gwitso will cover the cock with a piece of red cloth and then hold it up to worship and sacrifice to the heaven and the earth before the sacred cock fight. In a 2010 trial of a Sheboygan, Wisconsin Hmong that was charged with staging a cockfight, it was stated that the roosters were a kept for both food and religious purposes, followed by an acquittal. In addition to the spiritual dimension, Hmong shaman can treat many physical illnesses by using text of sacred words. Korea. Shamanism is still practiced in North and South Korea. In the South, the role of a shaman is most frequently taken by women known as mudangs, while male shamans are called biksu mudangs. A person can become a shaman through hereditary title or through natural ability. Shamans are consulted in contemporary society for financial and marital decisions. Japan. Shamanism is part of the native Japanese religion of Shinto, although Shinto is distinct in that it is shamanism for an agricultural society. Since the early Middle Ages, Shinto has been influenced by and syncretized with Buddhism and other elements of continental East Asian culture. The book Occult Japan, Shinto, Shamanism and the Way of the Gods by Percival Lowell delves further into researching Japanese shamanism or Shintoism. The book Japan Through the Looking Glass, Shaman to Shinto uncovers the extraordinary aspects of Japanese beliefs. Siberia and North Asia. Siberia is regarded as the locus classicus of shamanism. It is inhabited by many different ethnic groups. Many of its peoples observe shamanistic practices even in modern times. Many classical ethnographic sources of shamanism were recorded among Siberian peoples. Manchu shamanism is one of very few shamanist traditions which had official status into the modern era, by becoming one of the imperial cults of the Qing dynasty of China alongside Buddhism, Taoism and traditional heaven worship. The Palace of Earthly Tranquility, one of the principal halls of the Forbidden City in Beijing, was partly dedicated to shamanist rituals. The ritual setup is still preserved in situ today. Among the Siberian Chukchis peoples, a shaman is interpreted as someone who is possessed by a spirit who demands that someone assume the shamanic role for their people. Among the Buyat, there is a ritual known as Shana, whereby a candidate is consecrated as shaman by another, already established shaman. Among several Samoyedic peoples, shamanism was a living tradition also in modern times, especially at groups living in isolation until recent times. The last notable Ngannizan shaman's seances could be recorded on film in the 1970s. When the People's Republic of China was formed in 1949 and the border with Russian Siberia was formally sealed, many nomadic Tungus groups that practiced shamanism were confined in Manchuria and Inner Mongolia. These include the Evenki. The last shaman of the Rakhine, SHAH-mən, died in October 2000. In many other cases, shamanism was in decline even at the beginning of 20th century. Central Asia. Geographic influences on Central Asian shamanism. Geographical factors heavily influence the character and development of the religion, myths, rituals and epics of Central Asia. While in other parts of the world, religious rituals are primarily used to promote agricultural prosperity, here they were used to ensure success in hunting and breeding livestock. Animals are one of the most important elements of indigenous religion in Central Asia because of the role they play in the survival of the nomadic civilizations of the steppes as well as sedentary populations living on land not conducive to agriculture. Shamans wore animal skins and feathers and underwent transformations into animals during spiritual journeys. In addition, animals served as humans' guides, rescuers, ancestors, totems and sacrificial victims. As a religion of nature, shamanism throughout Central Asia held particular reverence for the relations between sky, earth and water and believed in the mystical importance of trees and mountains. Shamanism in Central Asia also places a strong emphasis on the opposition between summer and winter, corresponding to the huge differences in temperature common in the region. The harsh conditions and poverty caused by the extreme temperatures drove Central Asian nomads throughout history to pursue militaristic goals against their sedentary neighbors. This military background can be seen in the reverence for horses and warriors within many indigenous religions. Common shamanic practices and beliefs shared among Central Asians. Central Asian shamans served as sacred intermediaries between the human and spirit world. In this role they took on tasks such as healing, divination, appealing to ancestors, manipulating the elements, leading lost souls and officiating public religious rituals. The shamanic Tsar copyright ants served as a public display of the shaman's journey to the spirit world and usually involved intense trances, drumming, dancing, chanting, elaborate costumes, miraculous displays of physical strength, and audience involvement. The goal of these Tsar copyright ants ranged from recovering the lost soul of a sick patient and divining the future to controlling the weather and finding a lost person or thing. The use of sleight of hand tricks, ventriloquism, and hypnosis were common in these rituals but did not explain the more impressive feats and actual cures accomplished by shamans. Shamans perform in a state of ecstasy deliberately induced by an effort of will. Reaching this altered state of consciousness required great mental exertion, concentration and strict self-discipline. Mental and physical preparation included long periods of silent meditation, fasting, and smoking. In this state, skilled shamans employ capabilities that the human organism cannot accomplish in the ordinary state. Shamans in ecstasy displayed unusual physical strength, the ability to withstand extreme temperatures, the bearing of stabbing and cutting without pain, and the heightened receptivity of the sense organs. Shamans made use of intoxicating substances and hallucinogens, especially macumba mushrooms and alcohol, as a means of hastening the attainment of ecstasy. The use of purification by fire is an important element of the shamanic tradition dating back as early as the 6th century. People and things connected with the dead had to be purified by passing between fires. These purifications were complex exorcisms, while others simply involved the act of literally walking between two fires while being blessed by the shaman. Shamans in literature and practice were also responsible for using special stones to manipulate weather. Rituals are performed with these stones to attract rain or repel snow, cold or wind. This rain stone was used for many occasions, including bringing an end to drought as well as producing hailstorms as a means of warfare. Despite distinctions between various types of shamans and specific traditions, there is a uniformity throughout the region manifested in the personal beliefs, objectives, rituals, symbols and the appearance of shamans. Shamanic rituals as artistic performance. The shamanic ceremony is both a religious ceremony and an artistic performance. The fundamental purpose of the dramatic displays seen during shamanic ceremonies is not to draw attention or to create a spectacle for the audience as many Westerners have come to believe, but to lead the tribe in a solemn ritualistic process. In general, all performances consist of 4 elements: dance, music, poetry and dramatic or mimetic action. The use of these elements serves the purpose of outwardly expressing his mystical communion with nature and the spirits for the rest of the tribe. The true shaman can make the journey to the spirit world at any time and any place, but shamanic ceremonies provide a way for the rest of the tribe to share in this religious experience. The shaman changes his voice mimetically to represent different persons, gods, and animals, while his music and dance change to show his progress in the spirit world and his different spiritual interactions. Many shamans practice ventriloquism and make use of their ability to accurately imitate the sounds of animals, nature, humans and other noises in order to provide the audience with the ambience of the journey. Elaborate dances and recitations of songs and poetry are used to make the shaman's spiritual adventures into a matter of living reality to his audience. Costume and accessories. The shaman's attire varies throughout the region, but his chief accessories are his coat, cap, and tambourine or drum. The transformation into an animal is an important aspect of the journey into the spirit world undertaken during shamanic rituals, so the coat is often decorated with birds' feathers and representations of animals, colored handkerchiefs, bells and metal ornaments. The cap is usually made from the skin of a bird with the feathers and sometimes head, still attached. The drum or tambourine is the essential means of communicating with spirits and enabling the shaman to reach altered states of consciousness on his journey. The drum, representing the universe in epitome, is often divided into equal halves to represent the earth and lower realms. Symbols and natural objects are added to the drum representing natural forces and heavenly bodies. Shamanism in Tsarist and Soviet Russia. In Soviet Central Asia, the Soviet government persecuted and denounced shamans as practitioners of fraudulent medicine and perpetuators of outdated religious beliefs in the new age of science and logic. The radical transformations occurring after the October Socialist Revolution led to a sharp decrease in the activity of shamans. Shamans represented an important component in the traditional culture of Central Asians, and because of their important role in society, Soviet organizations and campaigns targeted shamans in their attempt to eradicate traditional influences in the lives of the indigenous peoples. Along with persecution under the Tsarist and Soviet regimes, the spread of Christianity and Islam had a role in the disintegration of native faith throughout Central Asia. Poverty, political instability and foreign influence are also detrimental to a religion that requires publicity and patronage to flourish. By the 1980s, most shamans were discredited in the eyes of their people by Soviet officials and physicians. Other Asian traditions. there is a strong shamanistic influence in the Paraphernalia religion in Central Asian, and in Tibetan Buddhism. Buddhism became popular with shamanic peoples such as the Tibetans, Mongols, and Manchu beginning in the 8th century. Forms of shamanistic ritual combined with Tibetan Buddhism became institutionalized as a major religion under the Mongolian Yuan dynasty and the Manchurian Qing dynasty. However, in the shamanic cultures still practiced by various ethnic groups in areas such as Nepal and northern India, shamans are not necessarily considered enlightened, and often are even feared for their ability to use their power to carry out malicious intent. In Tibet, the Nyingma schools in particular, had a tantric tradition that had married priests known as nikpas or nakmas mos. The nikpas were often employed or commissioned to rid the villages of demons or disease, creations of protective amulets, the carrying out of religious rites etc. The nikpas should however, have been grounded in Buddhist philosophy and not simply another form of shaman, but sadly, this was most often not the case. There have always been, however, highly realized and accomplished nikpas. They were in their own right great lamas who were of equal status as lamas with monastic backgrounds. The monasteries, as in many conventional religious institutions, wished to preserve their own traditions. The monasteries depended upon the excesses of patrons for support. This situation often led to a clash between the more grassroots and shamanic character of the traveling car paragraph DPA and Nikpa culture and the more conservative religious monastic system. Jhakri is the common name used for shamans in Sikkim, India. They exist in the Limbu, Sunnuor, Ri, Sherpa, Kami, Tamang, Gurung and Lepcha communities. They are influenced by Hinduism, Tibetan Buddhism, Mun and Bar paragraph N rites. Shamanism is still widely practiced in the Ryukyu Islands, where shamans are known as Noro and Yuta. Noro generally administer public or communal ceremonies while Yuta focus on civil and private matters. Shamanism is also practiced in a few rural areas in Japan proper. It is commonly believed that the Shinto religion is the result of the transformation of a shamanistic tradition into a religion. Forms of practice vary somewhat in the several Ryukyu Islands, so that there is, for example, a distinct Miyako shamanism. Shamanism practices seem to have been preserved in the Catholic religious traditions of Aborigines in Taiwan. In Vietnam, shamans conduct rituals in many of the religious traditions that co-mingle in the majority and minority populations. In their rituals, music, dance, special garments and offerings are part of the performance that surround the spirit journey. Europe. While shamanism had a strong tradition in Europe before the rise of monotheism, shamanism remains a traditional, organized religion in northern Eurasia, including Mary El and Udmurtia, two semi-autonomous provinces of Russia with large minority populations. Shamanism in Scandinavia may be represented in rock art dating to the Neolithic era and was practiced throughout the Iron Age by the various Teutonic tribes and the Baltic Finnic peoples. People which used to live in Siberia, have wandered to their present location since then. For example, many Uralic peoples live now outside Siberia, however the original location of the Proto-Uralic peoples is debated. Combined phytogeographical and linguistic considerations suggest that this area was north of central Ural Mountains and on lower and middle parts of Ob River. The ancestors of Hungarian people or Magyars have wandered from their ancestral Proto-Uralic area to the Pannonian Basin. Shamanism played an important role in Turco-Mongol mythology. Tengriism, the major belief among Kshianu or Mongol and Turkic peoples, Magyars and Bulgars in ancient times incorporates elements of shamanism. Shamanism is no more a living practice among Hungarians, but remnants have been reserved as fragments of folklore, in folktales, customs. Some historians of the late Middle Ages and early modern period have argued that traces of shamanistic traditions can be seen in the popular folk belief of this period. Most prominent among these was the Italian Carlo Ginzburg, who claimed shamanistic elements in the Benandanti custom of 16th-century Italy, the Hungarian Epermelvar Pascal Kubc, who identified them in the Tawaltos tradition of Hungary, and the Frenchman Claude Lecoultre, who has argued that medieval traditions regarding the soul are based on earlier shamanic ideas. Ginsberg in particular has argued that some of these shamanistic traditions influence the conception of witchcraft in Christendom, in particular ideas regarding the witches' Sabbath, leading to the events of the witch trials in the early modern period. Cunning folk is an English-language term which, like shaman, is found as a broad generalization in academia, to cover both practitioners of beneficial folk magic as well as witches who did harm. However, the term was not generally used in the period being discussed. Christian-sanctioned laws were enacted across England, Scotland and Wales that often condemned witches. In Scandinavia the klockgummer or klockgubbe, and collectively de kloka, as they were known in Swedish, were usually elder members of the community who acted as naturopathic doctors and midwives as well as using folk magic such as magic rhymes. In Denmark they were called klogmand and klogkonen collectively as klogefolk. The names used for cunning folk in Italy vary from region to region, although such names include praticos, geritari, fatukir, dunche autano and mago, maga or mahadzha. At times, they were sometimes called stragi, although usually only behind their backs or by those who either are skeptical of their powers or believe they deal in black magic. The cunning profession akin to shamanism survived the 20th century and into the early 21st, allowing Italian-American sociologist Sabina Magliocco to make a brief study of them. Circumpolar shamanism, Inuit and Yupik cultures. Eskimo groups inhabit a huge area stretching from eastern Siberia through Alaska and northern Canada to Greenland. Shamanistic practice and beliefs have been recorded at several parts of this vast area cross-cutting continental borders. When speaking of shamanism in various Eskimo groups, we must remember that the term shamanism can cover certain characteristics of various different cultures. Mediation is regarded often as an important aspect of shamanism in general. Also in most Eskimo groups, the role of mediator is known well. The person filling it in is actually believed to be able to contact the beings who populate the belief system. Term shaman is used in several English-language publications also in relation to Eskimos. Also the Alignalgi of the Asian Eskimos is translated as shaman in the Russian and English literature. The belief system assumes specific links between the living people, the souls of hunted animals, and those of dead people. The soul concepts of several groups are specific examples of soul dualism. Unlike the majority of shamanisms, the careers of most Eskimo shamans lack the motivation of force. Becoming a shaman is usually a result of deliberate consideration, not a necessity forced by the spirits. Diversity, with similarities, another possible concern. Do the belief systems of various Eskimo groups have such common features at all, that would justify any mentioning them together? There was no political structure above the groups, their languages were relative, but differed more or less, often forming language continuums. There are similarities in the cultures of the Eskimo groups together with diversity, far from homogeneity. The Russian linguist Manuvchikov, an expert of Siberian Yupik and Syrenki Eskimo languages, mentions that the shamanistic seances of those Siberian Yupik and Syrenki groups he has seen have many similarities to those of Greenland Inuit groups described by Fridtjof Nansen, although a large distance separates Siberia and Greenland. There may be certain similarities also in Asiatic groups with North American ones. Also the usage of a specific shaman's language is documented among several Eskimo groups, used mostly for talking to spirits. Also the Ungazimiite had a special allegoric usage of some expressions. The local cultures showed great diversity. The myths concerning the role of shaman had several variants, and also the name of their protagonists varied from culture to culture. For example, a mythological figure, usually referred to in the literature by the collective term sea woman, has factually many local names: Nerevig meat dish among Polar Inuit, Nuliaup lubrikus among Netselingmut, Stna the nether one among Baffinland Inuit. Also the soul conceptions, for example the details of the soul dualism showed great variability, ranging from guardianship to a kind of reincarnation. Conceptions of spirits or other beings had also many variants. Africa. In central Mali, Dogon sorcerers claim to have communication with a head deity named Amma, who advises them on healing and divination practices. In the early 19th century, traditional healers in parts of Africa were often referred to in a derogatory manner as witch doctors practicing juju by early European settlers and explorers. Contemporary ethnology records that the San, or their ancestors distributed throughout southern Africa before the 20th century, practiced shamanism. In the semi-desert northern Cape region, the shamans of the Zam people were known by the compound word gi, 10, where gi is power and 10 indicated possession. The word is phonetically identical to the Xhosa word for doctor. In areas in eastern Free State and Lesotho, where they coexisted with the early Sota tribes, local folklore describes them to have lived in caves where they drew pictures on cave walls during a trance and were also reputed to be good rainmakers. The classical meaning of shaman is a person who, after recovering from a mental illness, takes up the professional calling of socially recognized religious practitioner, is exemplified among the Sisala. The fairies seized him and made him insane for several months. Eventually, though, he learned to control their power, which he now uses to divine. The term Sanjama, as employed in Zulu and congeneric languages, is effectively equivalent to shaman. Sanjamas are highly revered and respected in their society, where illness is thought to be caused by witchcraft, pollution, or by the ancestors themselves either malevolently, or through neglect if they are not respected, or to show an individual her calling to become a Sanjama. For harmony between the living and the dead, vital for a trouble-free life, the ancestors must be shown respect through ritual and animal sacrifice. The term Nyanga, also employed by the Nguni cultures, is equivalent to herbalist, is used by the Zulu people and a variation used by the Karanga, among whom remedies for ailments are discovered by the Nyanga being informed in a dream, of the herb able to effect the cure and also of where that herb is to be found. The majority of the herbal knowledge base is passed down from one Nyanga to the next, often within a particular family circle in any one village. Shamanism is known among the Nuba of Kordofan in Sudan. Americas, North America. Native American and First Nations cultures have diverse religious beliefs, and there was never one universal Native American religion or spiritual system. Although many Native American cultures have traditional healers, ritualists, singers, mystics, law keepers and medicine people, none of them ever used, or use, the term shaman to describe these religious leaders. Rather, like other indigenous cultures the world over, their spiritual functionaries are described by words in their own languages, and in many cases are not taught to outsiders. Many of these indigenous religions have been grossly misrepresented by outside observers and anthropologists, even to the extent of superficial or seriously mistaken anthropological accounts being taken as more authentic than the accounts of actual members of the cultures and religions in question. Often these accounts suffer from noble savage-type romanticism and racism. Some contribute to the fallacy that Native American cultures and religions are something that only existed in the past, and which can be mined for data despite the opinions of Native communities. Not all indigenous communities have roles for specific individuals who mediate with the spirit world on behalf of the community. Among those that do have this sort of religious structure, spiritual methods and beliefs may have some commonalities, though many of these commonalities are due to some nations being closely related, from the same region, or through post-colonial governmental policies leading to the combining of formerly independent nations on reservations. This can sometimes lead to the impression that there is more unity among belief systems than there was in antiquity. With the arrival of European settlers and colonial administration, the practice of Native American traditional beliefs was discouraged and Christianity was imposed upon the indigenous people. In most communities, the traditions were not completely eradicated, but rather went underground, and were practiced secretly until the prohibitive laws were repealed. Up until and during the last 100 years, thousands of Native American and First Nations children from many different communities were sent into the Canadian Indian residential school system, and Indian boarding schools in an effort to destroy tribal languages, cultures and beliefs. The Trail of Tears, in the U.S., forced Native Americans to relocate from their traditional homes. Canadian laws enacted in 1982, and henceforth, have attempted to reverse previous attempts at extinguishing native culture. Mesoamerica, Maya. The Maya people of Guatemala, Belize, and southern Mexico practice a highly sophisticated form of shamanism based upon astrology and a form of divination known as the blood speaking, in which the shaman is guided in divination and healing by pulses in the veins of his arms and legs. Aztec. In contemporary Nahuatl, shamanism is known as Queohtli, leading during dreaming by friends of the night to Tlalocoen. South America, shamanic healing is found among the indigenous Cuna people of Panama, who rely on sacred talismans. As such, they enjoy a popular position among local peoples. The Urarina of the Peruvian Amazonia have an elaborate cosmological system predicated on the ritual consumption of ayahuasca. Urarina ayahuasca shamanism is a key feature of this poorly documented society. Among the Brazilian Tapirapa copyright people, shamans are called to serve in their dreams. The Shua people, seeking the power to defend their family against enemies, would apprentice themselves to become shamans. Santo Daime and Unia Pound do vegetal syncretic religions with elements of shamanism. They use an entheogen called ayahuasca to connect with the spirit realm and receive divine guidance. Amazonia. In the Peruvian Amazon basin in north coastal regions of the country, the healers shamans are known as curanderos. Ayahuasqueros are Peruvian shamans, such as among the Urarina people, who specialize in the use of ayahuasca, a psychedelic herbal potion used for physical and psychological healing, divine revelation, and for the very reproduction of society itself. Ayahuasqueros have become popular among Western spiritual seekers, who claim that the shamans and their ayahuasca brews have cured them of everything from depression to addiction to cancer. In addition to curanderos' use of ayahuasca and their ritualized ingestion of mescaline-bearing San Pedro cactuses for the divination and diagnosis of sorcery, north coastal shamans are famous throughout the region for their intricately complex and symbolically dense healing altars called mesas. Sharon has argued that the mesas symbolize the dualistic ideology underpinning the practice and experience of north coastal shamanism. For Sharon, the mesas are the physical embodiment of the supernatural opposition between benevolent and malevolent energies. In the Amazon rainforest, at several Indian groups, the shaman acts also as a manager of scarce ecological resources. The rich symbolism behind Tucano shamanism has been documented in some in-depth field works even in the last decades of the 20th century. The Eskimo of the Ui is believed to be able to perform a soul flight. The soul flight can serve several functions: healing, flying to the sky to consult cosmological beings to get a name for a newborn baby, flying to the cave of Pekaris Mountains to ask the father of Pekaris for abundance of game, flying deep down in a river, to achieve the help of other beings. Thus, a Eskimo is believed to be able to reach sky, earth, water, in short, every element. Shamanism among the Yanomami paragraph is described in Tales of the Yanomami by Jacques Lizotte. Mapuk. Among the Mapuk people of Chile, the community shaman, usually a woman, is known as the Maqui, and serves the community by performing ceremonies to cure diseases, ward off evil, influence the weather and harvest, and by practicing other forms of healing such as herbalism. Aymara. For the Aymara people of South America, the Aturi is a healer who heals the body and the soul. They serve the community and do the rituals for Pachamama. Fuegians. Although Fuegians were all hunter-gatherers, they did not share a common culture. The material culture was not homogeneous either. The Big Island and the archipelago made two different adaptations possible. Some of the cultures were coast-dwelling, others were land-oriented. Both Selknam and Yamana had persons filling in shaman-like roles. The Selknams believed their S to have supernatural capabilities, for example to control weather. A figure of appeared in myths too. The Yamana corresponds to the Selknam. Oceania. On the island of Papua New Guinea, indigenous tribes believe that illness and calamity are caused by dark spirits, or marzalai, which cling to a person's body and poison them. Shamans are summoned in order to purge the unwholesome spirits from a person. Shamans also perform rainmaking ceremonies and can allegedly improve a hunter's ability to catch animals. In Australia, various Aboriginal groups refer to their shamans as clever men, and clever women also as caddy. These Aboriginal shamans use Mabon or Mabane, the material that is believed to give them their purported magical powers. Besides healing, contact with spiritual beings, involvement in initiation and other secret ceremonies, they are also enforcers of tribal laws, keepers of special knowledge and may hex to death one who breaks a social taboo by singing a song only known to the clever men. Contemporary Western Shamanism. There is an endeavor in some contemporary occult and esoteric circles to reinvent shamanism in a modern form, often drawing from core shamanism, a set of beliefs and practices synthesized by Michael Hana, centered on the use of ritual drumming and dance, and Hana's interpretations of various indigenous religions. Hana has faced criticism for taking pieces of diverse religions out of their cultural contexts and synthesizing a set of universal shamanic techniques. Some neo-shamans focus on the ritual use of entheogens, and also embrace the philosophies of chaos magic, while others have created their own forms of shamanism. European-based neo-shamanic traditions are focused upon the researched or imagined traditions of ancient Europe, where many mystical practices and belief systems were suppressed by the Christian Church. Some of these practitioners express a desire to practice a system that is based upon their own ancestral traditions. Some anthropologists and practitioners have discussed the impact of such neo-shamanism as giving extra pay to indigenous American traditions, particularly as many pagan or heathen shamanic practitioners do not call themselves shamans, but instead use specific names derived from the European traditions they work within, such as var paragraph lva or seed kuna of the sagas. Many spiritual seekers travel to Peru to work with ayahuasqueros, shamans who engage in the ritual use of ayahuasca, a psychedelic tea which has been documented to cure everything from depression to addiction. When taking ayahuasca, participants frequently report meeting spirits, sometimes called machine elves, and receiving divine revelations. Shamanistic techniques have also been used in New Age therapies which use enactment and association with other realities as an intervention. Criticism of the term. Certain anthropologists, most notably Alice Keogh in her book Shamans and Religion, An Anthropological Exploration in Critical Thinking, are highly critical of the term shaman. Part of this criticism involves the notion of cultural appropriation. This includes criticism of New Age and modern Western forms of shamanism, which, according to Keogh, misrepresent or dilute indigenous practices. Alice Keogh also believes that the term reinforces racist ideas such as the noble savage. Keogh is highly critical of Mir Shia Eliad's work on shamanism as an invention synthesized from various sources unsupported by more direct research. To Keogh, what some scholars of shamanism treat as being definitive of shamanism are practices that exist outside of what is defined as shamanism and play similar roles even in non-shamanic cultures, and that in their expression are unique to each culture that uses them and cannot be generalized easily, accurately or usefully into a global religion of shamanism. Because of this, Keogh is also highly critical of the notion that shamanism is an ancient, unchanged, and surviving religion from the Paleolithic period. Mir Ali Hopper also discusses whether the term shamanism is appropriate. He recommends using the term shamanhood, or shamanship, for stressing the diversity and the specific features of the discussed cultures. He believes that this places more stress on the local variations and emphasizes that shamanism is not a religion of sacred dogmas, but linked to the everyday life in a practical way. Following similar thoughts, he also conjectures a contemporary paradigm shift. Piers Vitebsky also mentions that, despite really astonishing similarities, there is no unity in shamanism. The various, fragmented shamanistic practices and beliefs coexist with other beliefs everywhere. There is no record of pure shamanistic societies. See also. Notes. References. Further reading. External links. AFECTA charitable organization protecting traditional cultures in northern Thailand, Shaman Suan, The Last Shaman of the Rakhine of Northeast China, by Richard Knoll and Kun Chi, New Age Frauds and Plastic Shamans, an organization devoted to alerting seekers about fraudulent teachers, and helping them avoid being exploited or participating in exploitation. Shamanic Healing Rituals by Tatjana Sem, Russian Museum of Ethnography, Shamanism and the Image of the Teutonic Deity. AA degree in by ASP John, Shamanism in Siberia, photographs by Stander Krupa, Studies in Siberian Shamanism and Religions of the Finno-Ugrian Peoples by Ordo Lintrop. Folk Belief and Media Group of the Estonian Literary Museum, A View from the Headwaters by Gerardo Rachel Dolmatov, Amazonian Indigenous Peoples and Ecology.